How's it going, guys? Welcome to Vivid Mini Mods. On today's video I'm going to be converting a Tau Riptide into an Imperial Knight. I picked up this Tau model on eBay and it was pretty much converted at the time. The guy positioned him onto the base with a thick wire running through his leg, but I wanted him in a different pose. So to start with, I disassembled the model and began realigning all the body parts. As you can see here, I drilled into the thigh and the hip to place some supports using cocktail sticks. This will help the glue and the Milliput hold the legs together, as this is where most of the weight will be situated. I want to have a good strong bond holding them together. I then did the same for the feet, which joined onto the legs, as these two would hold most of the weight of the model. Once the pose for the bottom half of the model was done, I then moved on to the top half, snipping off the plastic support. I then drilled some holes in this too, as the arms would be holding two separate weapons and would be quite heavy for the model. I then got rid of any Tau iconography by chopping it off with some clippers. The guy who I picked this model off must have really liked these colours, but they don't really do it for me. A bit of a strange mix of green and red and purple and white. And you can also see that the paint is applied quite thickly as well, so I'm not really sure how I'm going to combat this. I think if I go for a muted colour palette and maybe only have a few highlights, it should help hide some of the thick brush strokes. Now when attaching the gun, I wanted to look a bit more like an Imperial Knight. Get rid of the front part of the Tau Gatling gun and replace it with the Knights instead. I originally thought this was a glued on piece, but it looks like it was actually moulded together, which is why I had such difficulty trying to get it off. After I cleaned it a bit, I then got the knight parts and trimmed off the tabs. For the head I wanted something a bit bigger than the Riptides, so I created a neck and then figured out what I could use to replace it. To start with, I tried using a skull from the Citadel skull box, and I kept this for quite a while, but I don't think it would look very good. Having that skull on the top just didn't quite fit the model right. In addition, I wanted to have a knight's face plate in front of it. That skull just wouldn't be right as the base for the head. I then added a couple more pieces from the knight's kit, including a knee pad. If I can get it to stick properly. and this would be the second weapon, a Knight Chainsword. But I wasn't really sure how to attach it. In the end, I figured the best thing to do would be to chop off the bit that normally attaches to the Knight's arm and have it directly glued onto the Riptide's hand. This piece was a lot easier to cut off. After that was done, I just lined up and applied a liberal dose of glue. Now for the pauldrons, I like the Knight shields. I thought I could do a little bit of iconography on each of them, as I have a nice flat surface would be perfect to do some freehand on. In place of the gaping hole where the Tau iconography was, the way I removed that head, a Tau head looked a bit better. This is from the Ghost Keel kit, the head that I didn't use. I put it on backwards, and if I just knock that shield one more time, it'll probably fall off. Right, now that's glued in place, I then size up which of the Knight's helmets I'm going to use in front. The Knights have such cool helmets, just figuring out which one would look best on this model. I decided this one would fit perfectly onto the back of the Ghost Keel head. Once everything was glued in place, I then began using some Milliput to strengthen all the bonds. I then filled in some more of the gaps around the head and the neck, as well as covered over where I snipped the Tau iconography off the shield. I didn't want to do anything special for this, as I'm going to put some more bits onto it afterwards. Next I started building up that leg, and when I got off the guy, he drilled a metal rod through the leg so he could balance on the base, but this completely destroyed the bottom half of the shin, so I'm going to completely build this up. I can do like the last part, flattening off as much as I can. Once I got as flat as possible, I then apply a little bit of detail similar to the other leg using the flat sculpting tool and make a few indents, and then just rolling up a few balls of Milliput. I give those little nodules a push on. I wanted this knight to look a bit more unique than all the others, so I decided to give it some spikes or wings or something sticking out from the back of its shoulders and head. To do this, I got a jewel case from a CD holder and began snapping it up. You can see that it is a bit awkward if you were trying to do this too, but you can learn from my mistakes, and if you use a snipping tool, you'll be able to get much sharper edges and much easier cuts. I cut quite a few pieces for this, as I might use them for future models as well. They had a unique style which you don't usually get from many GW parts. I then got a Dremel and smoothed off the edges so I wouldn't cut myself on the sharp pieces. I then add some glue and attach the pieces to the model. I then primed him completely black and he's ready to start painting. So you can see I've gone for a more muted colour palette in this one, as the paint was already a bit thick when I started, and any kind of dry brushing would be out the window with this. So once he's completely black, I then pin lined him with some light blue paint, trying to be as neat as possible. But not to be too neat, just wipe it over your finger afterwards if you get any on the black. I then did the same for the shields, just pin lining the edges. Then any bits that stuck out from the model, which I thought could use a little bit of colour, I just added a bit more of that light blue. If you do get any of black, just continue going and then touch up afterwards when you're finished. This is the start of the galaxy theme I decided to go for with this model. I laid down some blue paint as the base, and you'll see later on how I did the galaxy effect. Here you can see me just tidying up any of that blue paint that I got onto the black, try and get it as nice and neat as possible. This is the start of the freehand I've done on the shields as well as the mask. Keeping the paint nice and wet, I started playing some blues and some reds with a paintbrush, though by blending in too much it didn't quite work. The problem is with a paintbrush, it just doesn't give the right effect I wanted, and all it does is just blend it all together, which would be good for most models as I enjoy wet blending, but for this I wanted something a bit more striking. In the end I found that using a sponge is the best for this technique. Using the sharp edges, I just dipped into the paint and just dabbed it slightly onto the model. Don't worry about going onto the black for now, you can always touch that up afterwards. Here you can see this is a much better effect. Unlike the brush, the sponge creates more of a speckled pattern, which is what I wanted when I was creating the Nebula galaxy theme. Of course this might look a bit rough at the moment. Then you go in afterwards with the brush and smooth off some of the edges, but not too much. I didn't want the same to happen as I did before. Now this is looking much better. I learned from my mistakes, and if ever I do a galaxy painting again, I know to use a sponge, not a brush. That's what it is with painting. You just gotta keep trying new things, new ideas, learning from your mistakes and moving on. Back when I first started painting miniatures, I didn't have a clue how to paint all the little tiny details. I remember trying to paint the fingers which are holding the guns, and it just seemed impossible. But now I'm learning little bits, picking up new techniques after watching videos online and speaking to people as well. You can see on the second shield, I only use the sponge, completely removing the brushes. This is a much better start already. I just keep building up layers, just keep building up until it looks just about right, and then you can come in with the brush afterwards then and smooth it off. Onto the sword, I didn't go too much into detail on this. I just cut a tight small space. I just added a little bit of light blue just to give that starry nebula effect. Again, you can see I've gone onto the black pieces, but you're not to worry too much. I'm going to come back over with some silver paint and neaten it all up. And you can see how it looks once I've speckled some white paint onto it as well. The white paint looks a bit like stars and really adds to the nebula look. I did the helmet too, and on the shards as well. Next, on to my favourite part. No model is complete without a little bit of edge highlighting. Then finally clean it all up with some silver paint. For this I use Lead Belcher from Citadel, and it's one of my favourite silver paints I've used so far. I've tried a couple from different ranges like Army Painter, but this has such smooth coverage, I've never found a better one. If any of you guys like any other silver paints, leave a comment down below. I'm always looking to expand my paint range. I then painted the AdMech iconography on the shield, as well neatened up all those bits that I overpainted with a sponge. You can get a close-up of the Nebula effect. Up close it might not look the best, but from 3 feet away it looks pretty good. Of course you can go in with many other colours as well. You can also use a smaller brush to create more speckled effects on the stars instead of the larger blobs that I did. I then continue edge highlighting with some white on top of the greys, only slightly touching the raised edges. Now move on to some freehand. It's not my best work, but I enjoy doing it. Hold the model nice and still and bracing my hand against it, I painted on a white skull with some cogs around the top of his head. It's quite an awkward spot to do this freehand, as the model was upside down and didn't quite rest flat. Then I come back in with the black and neaten up all those edges. Unfortunately I didn't quite wait long enough, and there's some grey in there as well. Eventually I'm going to attempt to do a proper freehand, maybe do a painting or something on a larger model. If any of you guys have any suggestions of a large flat model or any paintings you'd like to see me do. Next I added some X's and some tallies all across the model to give the impression that he's been tallying up all of his kills. As this model doesn't have any purity seals, I thought that the pilots would paint directly onto him all words of encouragement and prayers to the God Emperor himself. I painted onto his main body, as well as continue to paint onto both of his weapons. This not only adds to the feel of the model, but also helps break up the plain black which covers most of it. Being a muted colour palette, I couldn't do much wet blending, so I had to help break up the model somehow. And this is the final guy on the turntables. This is a bit too big for my normal turntables, so you have to forgive the shadows in the background. And that'll do it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Like always, leave a like and subscribe. If you didn't, then leave a comment. I'll see you guys in a fortnight time for the next video.